Good evening. This is a Chicago Computer Society Linux SIG 2 group meeting in November 2021. Tonight, I don't have a heavy agenda whatsoever. I'm trying to find out where everybody is at as far as their Linux system. Wayne and I were talking early on that, and it looks like he's got to use gpartition to resize his partitions so that he can make more room for the operating system, which is pretty full right now. And he has plenty of space for his home directory in another partition. The difference is right now his root system is 91.5% full, and that automatically slows down in any computer once you pass about 80%. And then his home directory is only 3.5% full. Now we got another guy coming in. Okay, that helps. All right. Now, offhand, I remember from an earlier meeting, and I think it might have been back in September. Offhand, it had to do with Windows computers in the home and a Linux using Samba, and they couldn't talk to each other. I used to use the Windows stuff a little bit, but I decided really wasn't for me for what I do on the computers and all the ones I have, and I'm constantly shuffling through them as is. And so I just kind of ignored it for the most part. But I stumbled across some things, and recently for a different issue, and I think I have some answers, or at least a direction to go for those that want to have their Windows systems and Linux systems to be able to share files. First off, you got to look at the Windows systems. Now, if they're already talking to each other and seeing each other, you're probably A-OK on that end. But for a lot of people, the problem is if you go into settings, networking, and you have to rummage around a little bit because I don't remember the exact location, you have to find out how your system is set up. They're either set up as public access or private access. Public access will not allow that sharing and discovery. You have to make certain on your Windows systems it is set to private. Then you have to get into the sharing settings that so that you can say, yes, I'm allowing printers and files to be shared. And those are two very key things along with a group name. The default in Windows is always workgroup. And most people who use this local network sharing facility, what they usually do and recommend to others is to change that group name to something else other than work group. And it has to be the same on all the systems, including the Samba on a Linux system. When you've got all them going, I think you'll find the majority of the probable causes of things not talking to one another, especially between Windows and Linux, may get resolved, or at least you'll be most of the way there. The other side is the Samba. I haven't gotten into that yet myself. I know of it, and I know what its purpose is, but I don't know on the configuration. There are some Linux systems right now that come pre-configured for the most part, with one exception. And that exception is, what's the name of the group? And if the name of the group is different than your Windows systems, it's like two ships passing in the night with all their lights off and radar off. They're not going to see each other. They're not even going to know that they exist. Kind of like in the days of the Titanic. They had very few ships lit up brightly, other than the Titanic might have been. And ships could pass during the night and never know that there was anybody else near them. If they had a fog, of course, they were using their foghorn to let everybody know audibly that they were around, and hopefully they could hear other ships doing the same kind of signaling. So those are, I think, are some of the key issues with various people trying to get the network file sharing and printer sharing features operational in their setups. Right now, just to get tonight's meeting, I had to get this Linux box wired up and started up, besides updated a little bit, not much. But it's kind of a case where right now I have a second box that's almost identical to it, and I'm having to try and be able to see if I can figure out how to manage the CCS website, but I got to learn all the tools, and trying to find time is really getting to be a nightmare. So I thought I would start off with that little ditty. Another ditty that goes back to, I think, July, was when I set mine up. I'm sitting here on a desktop, not on a laptop. And the question came up about Wi-Fi. Okay. Now, on Wi-Fi, I don't know how well you're going to see these things, but I got this little dongle here, goes in a USB port. This bigger one, and this little jewel. Okay, now here's the headache, and I'm not joking when I say the headache. And I didn't remember this at first, but I remembered way back when I started playing with Raspberry Pis, 2011 or 2012, I don't remember which. Generally speaking, it don't matter about all these devices. They work with a little bit of a headache. But on Windows versus Linux, there are different problems, different reasons. Oddly enough, this little one here works with Raspberry Pis. Stick it in this Linux box, it works fine. These two were made really for a Windows-based system. You stick it in there, it doesn't recognize it. But if you stick them into a Windows system, it depends on how it's configured. It may recognize it right away and make use of it, or it may not recognize it right away because there's some configuration settings that have to be changed. I found that out with the sister machine that I have here. that I'm trying to develop for trying to figure out how to deal with the web site. And so the end result is you got to play with a lot of these things, and they have a lot of little idiosyncrasies. Some things will work on one system and not work on the other. Sometimes it's configuration. Sometimes, especially on the Linux side, you may not have the drivers. So I think with the two big ones that I had here, Linux probably doesn't have the drivers, but that little tiny one that came from the Raspberry Pi days, that one, it recognizes, it supports it, no problem whatsoever. Go figure. So you have that kind of an issue. And it's a case where it's all a learning curve on all this stuff. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. Hell, I've been on Windows going back to Windows 1.1. Besides, prior to that, with DOS and CPM, Commodore 64s, Heath 89s, Atari, not Atari, Altar 8800, 8800B, and 680B. And so these are all headaches. You got to figure out, is this a driver issue? Is it a configuration issue? If it's the driver, right now it's unsupported. Maybe tomorrow somebody will figure out a proper driver that'll make that device work. But until then, you have to find alternative means to do it. But once I found the right devices, I was able to set up on this Linux here a Wi-Fi and disconnect my Ethernet cable. Worked just fine. But it's a hit and miss operation that will drive a lot of folks nuts. I don't have specifics as to why certain devices will work and some will not. It's something that eventually, if I ever find the time, I might remember and do a little bit more research on. One of the main things that I'm looking at for tonight, Wayne's already participated a little bit. I'm trying to find out who doesn't have their system up and running. How about you, Dennis?
Pardon?
Do you have your Linux system up and running yet?
I do not.
Well, let me guess. You're waiting for Santa to help set it up for you.
December might be a better month when I can't do things outside. I'm busy.
Well, January and February might be. I got an unusual situation at my house. The front door faces south, and I've lived in this house over 67 years, and all of a sudden at my front door, I got bugs galore trying to get in the house for the winter. And I think the bugs are trying to tell us we're in for a nasty winter. So just keep that in mind. That might be a weather predictor, because I've never seen anything like it before. And I've had a bunch of them get in before I finally started. I go now in and out of the house through the back door. That's the north side, and I don't have any problems there. So yeah, it's one of those things. What are you going to do? Donna, how's your system run? Okay, how about Ken? How's your system running?
Running fine.
That's good. How's Donna's system going?
It's fine also.
All right. That's at least a positive. So we got one going nowhere. We got one with a bit of a problem and given directions how to get out of that problem. Two working fine. Peter, you've got yours going, don't you?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Except that every time I turn it on, it wants to do updates.
Well, why not? They don't have a regular schedule like Microsoft tries to do. So whenever somebody makes a modification, they toss it out there, and anybody who runs the right operating system can pick up the changes as they come along. That's the way Linux always has worked. How about you, Jim? Do you have a working Linux system up?
I talked to Carl. Well, I exchanged emails with Carl, and as of a few days ago, he didn't have it working yet either.
Okay, that's I know who you're talking about, and I'm not that surprised because he's a latecomer to the group.
Right, right.
Jim, we couldn't hear you if you spoke up before.
Oh, is this better?
Yeah, that works.
Microphone wasn't turned on. I'm one of those like Dennis having a hard time finding the hours to do it. I think I finally decided which machine I'm going to do it on. Now I have to find the time to sit down and do it. I'm hoping that over Christmas I will be able to find some time, but I'm not sure yet.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, Jim. Last week the wheel, one of the tires fell off of my 2002 Jeep. So I spent 4 days because the lug nuts were all bent and destroyed. I spent 4 days out there in the cold. I didn't have it in a garage trying to replace lug nuts. So things have been happening. Just I'm waiting for things to settle down.
How
Well,
fast?
we went to New Mexico for 10 days and I came back and the dryer was dead. So that had to be worked on immediately. That took a couple of days. And in working on the dryer, I discovered that the washing machine was spewing grease out the bottom. So it took about 4 or 5 days to repair the washing machine. And then while we had the laundry room all torn apart, we decided to go ahead and rip the old wallpaper off of it and paint the thing. So my son calls it.
I'm with you, Jim. That's how it's been going for me too.
well, you guys must have a strange Christmas or planned Christmas and that, because most people are pretty darn busy at Christmas time. So I don't know where you think you're going to get manufacture the time, especially if you have family that gets together, and that a lot of times people get items that need some assembly. Somebody gets stuck with that.
Tab A and slot B.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year, I have to do all the changing my timers. I've got this X10 lighting system, and I've got about 4 or 5 different computers that run it. So, got to try to get them all set to the right time.
Well, I have a few lights on just plain old timers, and I had to make minor adjustments for that, especially with going to standard time, and one wall clock in the kitchen. Other than that, everything else is all computerized. I didn't even have to think about it. It did it all automatically. I just wish that the timers, mine are mostly, 2 of them are mechanical, old style ones, and the other one is a digital type one, but you gotta change the time on it, just like on the mechanical ones. Yeah, it works. But generally speaking, what I'm trying to also get here in the group are a couple things, because I'm not sure all the direction I should go in next. And that is, I'm trying to get a feel for tips and tricks that can be part of a meeting that each of you runs into. What the program is. Maybe some of us would like to know what the program is, and maybe we want to adopt it. And at the same time, too, you can also give us your impressions, your, so to speak, a review of the program and how to set it up and actually use it. This could be anywhere between like 5 minutes to 15 minutes a piece, whatever the case may be. I'm also looking for those of you who might want to do a presentation at some point as well. And this could be anywhere between, I'd say, a 15-minute to an hour-long presentation. That's up to you. And it should all be synchronized for the Linux world. Even though, like what I leaded off with, mixes a Windows world, it could, I'm sure something very similar applies to those with Macs. If you got Macs and Linux, or Macs and Windows systems, you might want them talking to each other and sharing information as well. And I'm sure there's something very, very similar there, but mine are a little too out of date right now. I did find something for them. I might be able to at least boost my OSs on those somewhat, but God knows when the heck that is going to happen, because I don't have enough time as is. With this month and next month, the holidays, I may be available on the internet, but we're not planning on having any meetings probably from around 20 or 21st of each of the months till probably several days after the actual holiday, before you start getting back into the swing of whatever you want to call normality. That seems to be something that changes all the time. At any rate, so really I'm trying to get a real feel from all of you. Some of the things we need to be looking at more. I know we're going to have to start working in the command line. Some people don't like the command line because with a command line, you don't have the graphical interface that helps you jog your memory and remember how you do things within that graphical interface. The command line is like old MS-DOS, if you're familiar with that, and you have to remember as much as you can. Sometimes, though, you have to have cheat sheets. All Linuxes come with man pages, which most people don't bother looking at. And the last time I looked at them, I perfectly understand why, because they are not as clear as they could be. I hope since the last time I looked at them, they've made a lot of improvements, but most of those man pages are made by techie people. They're not generally there for the general user to be able to quickly comprehend the commands, the parameters, and how you set them up. So I do know that's one area we got to get into. I'm curious for any of you to pipe in on some of the ideas you got floating around in your head as to where we go in the near future, like starting with December and January.
Tim,
Yes?
I'd like to see a refresher session on installing programs that don't come native,
Oh, you like side loading?
like well, I don't know what side loading is.
Well, side loading comes from like the phones and Android and iOS. Side loading means you're not going to the normal store, which is the normal resource, and you're bringing them in from some other source.
John Kennedy advised me that one of the workshops in December will spend the entire workshop on loading programs and not specifically. He's going to do a quick review of the different repositories and stores, but then he's going to go through the different kinds of ways of using the terminal and using some of the esoteric means of installing programs.
That's good. That's excellent.
In other words, what we're doing is we're getting beyond the repos, beyond Synaptic. Now we're getting into things like PPAs and direct downloads and
Right.
how to deal with deb packages, the depackage command, etc.
Right. That's what he
Okay.
said he was going to get into.
That's good for people to know, although it's hardly for beginners.
Oh,
No, and
absolutely.
he said the same thing. He said, he said that Orvin, he had focused specifically on beginners, and he felt that it would just confuse people. He says, most everybody can find the basic programs that they want to be productive: word processing, spreadsheets, database, browsing,
Well,
editing, those kinds of things. But I've looked at a number of them that just, how do I do this? I mean, here it is. I've downloaded it from GitHub. Now what do I do?
Yeah, I have had problematic hardware where I had to go outside the repos. I have had some program configuration where the version in the repo just didn't match my hardware. But those are the only real times even I do much of anything outside the repos.
well, generally, my information, and it's you have to take this with a grain of salt. When you're side loading, which means you're not going through normal channels to install a program, you have to really do your homework and make certain where you're getting it from is a trustworthy source, because like in Windows and even in Mac world, they try and warn you not to do side loading for one simple reason. There's a lot of bad people out there. They poison copies of the most popular items. Then you side load them in because they're not in the regular resource locations, such as the stores. And the end result is you end up infecting your system, and you may not know it right away. You may be having one of those bugs that gradually grows and grows and grows, and by the time you know you're infected, even years could go by. If you got any backups, all the backups possibly going back for up to several years may be worthless because they contain the contaminated code.
Yeah, and for that reason, along those lines, it's good to have people know there are some safe resources that are well known, And
Yeah.
there are some lesser known but safe resources. And then anything else, don't bother with it.
Yeah, it's a headache I mean, on the phones, there's a lot of people that go around side loading. If necessary, they have to unlock their phone if it's a locked phone to begin with. And they're side loading stuff from all over the place. They have no idea the bad things that can be going on by doing that. And I get the impression, especially with the younger generations, some of them don't care as long as they can get and do what they want to do. That's all they're concerned with. This idea of security and privacy, they already consider there is none. Therefore, why bother going through all the hoops to be safe?
Yeah, well, it's the idea that if it gets messed up, you either reset or buy a new one.
Yeah, well, I mean, if your pockets are that deep, please send some of the money my way. I could use it one way or another. But otherwise, most folks don't have that deep pockets. They can keep going out and buying new equipment because they screwed up what they had.
Yeah,
And
in Linux, the worst that usually happens is you just blow away everything and start over. And a lot of people haven't backed it up, so they are really starting over.
yes, well, that's the thing that I'm because of the articles in the More FYI that I post, I'm seeing a slow increase in problems with Linux. We had the uncovering of a 10-year-old problem with the Su and sudo that has been patched, but who knows how long that was going on before it was finally fixed, and how many people were affected by it and had no clue this was the source of their problem. And that's the thing. Most of the libraries that are used by all languages, programming languages, that is, and all operating systems, no matter what they are, there's a ton of code in those things that nobody's really checking out. Because they are not checking it out, all of a sudden you have like the Su sudo bug that was discovered, and it had been going on for 10 years. And look at all the code that has been spewed out over the years that use these library features. And a library is, if you visualize all the books in a library, think of each book as a sub-program to almost a full program. And any program that uses that library can say, I want to link my program into this book in this library and have it do whatever it's supposed to do. And maybe it passes results back out so that I can display some message or pass that information on to something else in the program execution stream. So it's, they're, I think, finally starting to wake up. One of the biggest problems we've got in all the computers, all the operating systems, all the programming languages is who's modifying the libraries and publishing them. What are their credentials? And is anybody checking what they're doing before it gets into widespread use? If they make a modification to a library, they add one or more books, and or they create a new library type, and it's only used right now in their programs, then they're the ones that are affected the most, along with those who run those programs. But once those libraries are disseminating throughout the world, who knows all the software that exists that are using bad libraries. Either it's got a security flaw, bugs in it that weren't originally caught, things like that. And until somebody figures out, oh, the source of the problem's in a library, in one or more books, nobody does anything about it.
Well, in Linux, you do have what is known as a community of developers. It's
Right.
not like having a final authority. And so you have this distributed responsibility. And for the most part, it works out very well with Linux. But it's very different from the model you have with Microsoft or Apple or Google. Very different.
You
So-
can also include Amazon on that too, with AWS. So
Yeah, so
this is-
maybe I jumped over, maybe a refresher on where and what all the depositories are named and how to use them properly would be a better first step. Some of us here are just putting the software on the machine and getting it running. And now we need to go out and get programs. And we find from a different group that you can use this program to do this in Linux that you could also use in Windows. So now you can duplicate your efforts. So finding the proper depository to pull that down from, if depository is the right name. Because I'm not really familiar. So maybe a session on just that section would
well,
be.
at the moment, I'll tell you right now, I'm very light in that area myself, but I do know that a good percentage of the software in the Windows world, and I'm not sure how much in the Mac world, is all cross-platform that comes from the Linux world. And much of what came from the Linux world is DOS-based style programs. And somebody says, hey, I'll bet you there's people in Windows and Mac that can use this, but they don't like the command line. So what they did is they worked up a GUI wrapper, it's called. Basically speaking, it wraps around that DOS program, does all the communications in and out from that DOS program. And to you, it looks just like any Windows or Mac program running like you expect it to, with a graphical user interface. But under Windows, it doesn't register itself in the registry. So removing it with the uninstall that comes with that program just wipes it out. That's it, gone. In Windows, if you use the uninstall that comes with the program, you have tons of crap left in the registry. You also have a lot of files that get left behind by a lot of. There are only a small percentage of programs I've uninstalled from the Windows world that truly cleaned out all of the files they originally installed. But I've seen none go take out what they stuck into the registry.
Yeah, that's why we have things like Geek Uninstaller and Revo Uninstaller.
That's right.
Now, what I think Pete might be getting at is the newcomers might want to know best of category and best resources to find stuff.
Getting really close. So I use Audacity on my Windows boxes. I have now found out that the latest versions are put in to capture all sorts of data and give it back to the company.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. The version that is in Linux does not.
Right.
So I would like to, so I did find it and I did download it to my box over here. But there's other programs like that, that going forward, they're gonna start grabbing on the Windows, and I don't have a Mac, so I don't know. I'd like to, if they're useful to me, I would like to be able to move them over onto the Linux box so I can use them the way they were intended. And then, since that box only sees the internet a little bit and has none of my other files on it for either my two work positions or my personal stuff, I have less of a problem with it maybe trying to go out and share some of that data, considering I'm not even using my regular username on that box.
Okay. So are you looking for alternatives to, or are you looking for programs that are cross-platform and have Linux versions?
Half and half.
Okay, so those are both possible things to cover. Alternatives to that work under Linux, and programs that are cross-platform and have Linux versions.
Yes, and Peter, I don't know about you or many of the others here, Nat. Have any of you looked at the more FYIs that I create?
The more what?
More FYIs.
No.
Okay.
Where are they?
Okay, first, they were normally published on the CCS website, which is under news and tips. And if you go to ccs.org, you'll see on the left side in red, news and tips. Click that. It brings you up the page. In the center is a column of weeks. The search box at the top of that list doesn't work if it's newer than January 2020. We don't know why, and we're not going to try and figure it out at this point. If what you're looking for is earlier, like December 2019 and prior, then what you have is readily available as a general search. All the search does is tell you which week contains one or more articles with that search value. If you take newer stuff in 2020, 2021, open up a week, use Control F, it'll create a little search box. You put in there something like Windows or Linux or Mac OS, Android, iOS, iPad OS, and it will tell you how many it finds in there, not so much articles, but how many times it finds the search word you're looking for. I might be able to give you an example, but since Jerry's passing, we have a kind of a minor problem with okay. Right now, we have a situation where none of my more FYIs are being posted. And right now, you have to be on an email list with Beata Kernan, our executive assistant, and she will mail you them as I send them to her. So you go into the news and tips. This is the column here that I'm referring to. If I take the last week and I open it up, it tells me that I only missed getting Saturday. Some weeks you may only see through Wednesday, maybe one in there Tuesday is the last posting I have for that week. It depends on how busy I am. So everything for these 6 days is all listed here. And you'd have to spend a considerable amount of time going through all that to find what you're looking for. Now, if I take and come back up here towards the top, I do a Control F as in Fred. There's the little search box there. And what I want to do now is I'll stick in Linux, anything Linux. It shows me over here, I have 52 words of Linux. This is a first one. It's in orange. Yellow highlight means these are the next ones in line. As you can see, I can have the search word 2 or 3 times for one article. So the 52 is not 52 articles. And if I use this down arrow, I can go through everything that's in there, reading what the headline and subheadline are. And I do post various articles on Linux, including Linux 101 as an example, that will teach you, for example, some of the command line stuff that we're going to eventually have to cover. You also have some brief articles on things like other Linux OSs that might be one day of some interest to any one of you. I also have pieces of software that either give you a kind of like a review and or how to use that piece of software. And it's up to you guys to go through this. Now, if I go back to the top, and that's a little bit tricky. Nuts. I can't quite get that. Oh, the way I want. All right. Now, if I come back up here, let's say you've got Windows systems there that you're also using. Just stick in Windows. Now, I can leave it just Windows, and it says I find the word 279 times, but that's anything about Windows. If I want to be more precise, I can go like Windows 10. Now there's only 37 occurrences that it found, and you can do that. If you got Mac, you can do the same thing for Mac, Android, iOS, iPad OS, Raspberry Pi sometimes is in here. There are a lot of security articles, but there's no commonality to be able to say, put in security and you'd find all the security articles. That doesn't exist. The only way you find those is the old-fashioned way. You have to look through the list and see what's basically out there. And I'm sorry that's the way it works, but we've never had a great search thing on it.
But Tim, these aren't articles written by, CCS members, or these are just articles that are out there on the internet.
That is correct.
What's my assurance that whoever wrote the article knew what the hell they're talking about? I mean,
I have a list of my favorite sites, and if it's on one of those sites, it's very likely to be authoritative. And
okay.
I gave that list out at South Suburban when I gave my talk on Linux there. I can revive that list of references.
Sure.
I would have to say the overwhelming majority of these articles are pretty reliable, very popular sources of information. How to Geek is very, very popular. Yahoo is reporting more news than anything. This ARS Teca Net, or however they enunciate that, that seems to be very good and reliable. Make use of GHacks, very, very popular. Tech Republic, this is a more business side of things, but it also has lots of articles that do apply to the average user, and that includes Linux. CNBC, that seems to be pretty reputable so far that I've seen. Pure Tech Info is very good. Tech News World is another good one. Softpedia. If you look for Softpedia, this is all software, but it could be Windows, Mac, or Linux base. And so you have to look at each one of the articles. LifeWire is very good. Gizmo seems to do a pretty good job at times. Tom's Guide. I mean, most of the, let's put it this way. If you're lucky, you know, maybe up to a half a dozen of these sources. I have, God, I haven't even kept track of how many different sources I'm using, and I create a mix every posting. So it's not all from one source, it's from a whole lot of sources. And so there's tons of information. This has been out here on the website for years. It's just that anything after 9/26, you have to be on an email list with Beata Kernan, our executive assistant. And if you want to get the postings as I give them to her to mail out, then you have to send Beata a email asking to be put on that list, and she will start sending you post as I do them. I just did Sunday yesterday, and I haven't even started Monday as yet. I just don't have the time yet. I'm hoping tomorrow I can get to at least start it. But this gives you some idea, the tons of information almost for any platform any of us might be using is probably out there in some form. Windows is probably, along with security articles, the biggest area. But there's a good amount of Linux in there, Mac, Android, iOS, iPad OS, Raspberry Pi, and some other occasional articles for small board computers. And within like Softpedia, as just one example, a lot of times they have a link to download the software that they may be discussing in the article. So far, I've never been burned on any of them that have been recommended, as long as it's something that interests me enough to download it and take a look at it. And if it's not my cup of tea, I delete it.
Yeah, and then since I have a Linux focus, I have found quite a number of websites that tend to focus on Linux, or they are Linux specific. And I am in contact with 2 or 3 user groups where they also are interested in sites that are focused on Linux. So that dovetails nicely with what Tim does.
Yeah, and I have quite a few Linux only focused sources. I also have the same thing for Mac, the same thing for Windows, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I, rather than trying to figure out what everybody's interested in, we got probably 10 people in here right now. The chances of all 10 of us having the same interest is about 0. And so bottom line is I don't know what everybody's interested in. So I take the shotgun approach. So my daily posts are from all different backgrounds, all different sources. I put together a whole big list of stuff for better than a month, about 5-6 weeks now at least. I'd say the average posting is 90 articles or a little better. I know at least one time I had 95 for one day's post. It used to be less and less the farther back you go. But generally speaking, there's tons of wonderful ideas. And Sanford Kolonek, who runs Tips and Tricks and maybe, or at least temporarily, running the West Side group, he uses my articles to create a list of articles that he will discuss in his meeting by bringing it up and seeing what the article talks about, and tries to enlighten people to some of the things that I'm posting and that they may be interested in. So he lets the audience select which articles that he listed there they want to hear more about it because they don't know about it.
Okay, so Tim, I like where you're going. It's great.
Where am I going? I'd like to know.
Okay. The general information out in the background, that's great. Okay, so now let's say I'm starting to go back into model railroading.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of programs out there to actually do control of trains,
Yep.
control of boards,
Yep.
control of lightings. And a lot of them run off of certain controllers in the background on a PC or on a Linux box, using that as the interface to the controllers.
Right.
So I would know what the program is, but it comes in and then it's, I may even have a link to where it is out there, but sometimes not. And a lot of times it has specific things that in the setups that I don't know because it's Linux and it's not familiar with me, to me.
Well, offhand, it's not familiar to me either. You're in an area I'm not into. I have come across what you're talking about, Bert.
I think you'll see that in recent articles, the Arduino or the Raspberry Pi each have canned programs to be able to control all those different devices. And Model Railroader, if you get the live stream stuff, now it's called trains.com, but you should be able to find all kinds of stuff in terms of lighting, circle, Y-shape, track switching, all kinds of stuff there that they show. And they show it in videos, so it's easier. But the Arduino, when they actually, back in 1975, I wanted to be able to create a system to control trains, HO trains. But the ability to do that was over my head at that time. But now that they have Arduino and Raspberry Pi, different software, both of which do that, and they show you how to set it up and configure it and what to download. It's possible. I haven't done it yet, but it's possible.
Yeah, and I haven't published articles on that, and I know of two sources offhand that probably have something in that territory, but not again knowing what some people are into. Why would I bother with it? I'm going after the stuff that I think the majority of people may have some interest in.
Agreed. Bert, I'm very familiar with both Arduino and Raspberry Pi, and I already have the Arduino IDE on both all my Windows machines and on the Linux box. I know the sketches there are universal. You can copy and paste them, and you can go between the different boards by just selecting the boards in the IDE. So you don't have to. You're not stuck to just the Uno. You can use the Mega and the Mini and the Pro Mini or whatever. But the one I'm looking at is the one that actually puts the numbers on the engines for the DCC controllers.
I think everything I've seen requires a DCC controller of some kind, although some of it could be through an application on a PC.
Yeah. Well, you should be able to do the application on the Linux box too.
Well, that
So
depends
again,
on who
it
developed.
depends on what engines you have and what their numbers are as to what features they have inside.
Yeah, well, I don't have any DCC engines yet. So I do my planning first and then I do my execution.
Well, I've been planning for about 40 years. That one day I'll actually do something constructive in that area.
Well, I'm actually making cars.
Yeah.
I'm in N scale.
I understand. I will show you in the other videos where you were showing us that, and that's terrific. But I'm all HO, and so switching gears is too hard.
I understand that. But I've got the reason I chose N is because when you're looking at square footage here in Hawaii, anywhere, the cost to do a 4x8 sheet permanently is astronomical. For just rent the space.
When before I had kids, I had room, and then that was the end of that.
Yeah.
And they're 40 now, so that's just life. But I still have all the stuff.
Yeah.
But that gets into the fact that, we can't address everybody's issue, but my more FYIs, that's what they originally were called, do have the shotgun approach. That's why they're so large and wide reaching in what they provide. And truthfully, and I've told this to CCS groups in the past, that anybody who goes and looks at the postings, I don't expect out of each day anybody to read more than 6 items. And if you click on the URL link, your browser should automatically open up a new tab with the article that link goes to. I would always keep coming back to the source of the articles, find the ones I'm interested in, opening them up as I go along. But then when I'm done perusing all the articles and find the ones I'm interested in, then I'll go back to the individual articles and I'll start reading them. Within 1 or 2 paragraphs, you have some idea whether you're interested or you're not. And if you're not, just close the tab. If you're interested in it, you can read it beginning to end and maybe do additional data searches of your own for other sources of information on the topic. This is something I've been doing for years. More FYs, I can't even remember when I started it, but that all came into being because people kept asking me at in-person meetings, primarily the South Side, where the heck do I get all the information? Well, in doing my research, I accumulated the information. I read it. I learned about it. and how much I remember at the time that they're asking questions and wanting answers, that always varied as to how much I did remember, depending on how much I got into it. But I started finally making more FYs. The first 700 and some odd postings I made were strictly by email, but some people didn't like all those emails. So we started putting it up on the website. Now Jerry's no longer with us, and until we figure out how to update it, we have to go back to emailing only to those who opt in by sending Beata Kernan at 1ccsadmin@comcast.net email and say, hey, put me on the More FYI list, and you'll start getting any postings that I create. If we get control over the website, and I'll start putting all the missing stuff up there first, and then we'll continue on from there. And I'll let everybody know that it's back up to date. Anything else bugging people? After all,
Jim, it's Donna. Can I speak for a moment? It's still muted, Ken. Can you hear me?
yeah, but I hear you on Ken's machine, not
All
yours.
right. Well, because I can't get my microphone down there to work. I don't know why. Anyway, I came upstairs to where he is. I think maybe we just cancel the December meeting. Things are really busy for everybody with the holidays. And we give you a breather to work on the website and the other things you need to do for CCS. I just think we could take a break and look at January when we go back to the fourth week.
Anybody else want to pipe in on that topic?
I would second that motion.
Well, I didn't think of it as a motion, but okay. Anybody besides those two?
Sounds good.
No problem here.
Well, I mean, if we want to cancel the December meeting, we can do that too, as far as that goes.
But it would be in 2 weeks if it isn't canceled.
Well, no, right now,
14th.
yeah, it's in December, and so that's a month from now,
Yeah.
roughly. So we either hold that one or we skip it and wait until January. But I'm trying to get a little bit of feel for exactly what I should be covering next. And I'm trying to get you guys to start piping in your problems more than you have so far. And like Wayne did at the very beginning, when most of you weren't even here yet. And at the same time too, if you come across something that you think other people would be interested in, tell us about it.
Well, I've got, I've tried this Jeep Hearted now, what you were suggesting. I'm coming up with, a box here, and it shows me free space preceding MIB, new size, for this partition, free space following MIB, and then it says align to, and there's 3 choices: cylinder, MIB, and none.
You're try sharing your screen, because it's not coming across clear to me what you're describing. I have a feeling I know what it is. Share your screen on that if you can.
See if I can do that.
And Wayne, could you clarify? Because you already brought up your machine, I thought, on Linux. Is this a second machine or what?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
You're trying to get a second machine going?
Yeah, I brought up my Linux, Let me try to get back.
He's on Windows right now, Dennis.
I'm on Windows.
His Linux machine he brought up earlier and we told him what he needs to do on the Linux machine. He needs to resize his partitions. He's running out of space in the root directory. And that's what he's trying to do, but he's getting an error message that I can't see right now. If you can't do it that way, the only other suggestion I've got is if you have a USB webcam, you'd have to move the camera to point to that computer's display.
Yeah, I don't have it handy here.
Okay.
Let me try.
It appears that that may not be an error message, but just one of gparted's dialogues, and it's asking you to choose how to align the partition, which is a normal part of what gparted does sometimes.
So here I am now with my
See, with certain drives, it tries to align things to a certain point, if necessary, leaving some blank space. There we go.
yeah, but see, it's not coming up with my with the part that I wanted to do, because I
That's not gparted, that's disks.
I know it hang on. There it is. Okay, here it is.
Wait a minute. You're still showing the
It's not
G.
showing. It's not showing the
Yeah.
right thing. Let me try sharing again now. Here we go. Ah, shoot. Here it is. There it is.
Okay.
You see where here's the up above here. You can see this is the middle, partition, and it says minimum size, free space, new
Right.
size.
What you have here, I've seen before. This is grayed out up here. That's really where you want the space, is before, over here. Whereas this is what exists now. And all it's going to let you do is put your cursor here. You'll get a double bar, vertical bar, and it allows you to move it back and forth while holding the left key down, and you can make space. That's step one. Step two, you then have to do a move and resize by clicking somewhere here in the body of the remaining amount. Click it, and it turns into a 4-point cross kind of deal. And you hold down the key, and it allows you to move the rest of the partition to take up the space after the original partition. That puts the free space here at the beginning, so that you can then resize partition 1 to consume that free space.
But can I change this? It says a new size. Can I change that?
Well, unless you know your numbers real good, I suggest you click up here where that little arrow is.
Tim, we can't see your mouse.
Oh, okay. At the top line there, the graphic. If you look at the
Right there.
arrow, yeah, that arrow there. Yeah. Now push it back left while holding the button down. Whoops.
Well, but hang on. What do I do now?
Yeah, push it back to the left. It's not moving. It should move.
What do I hold down?
Yeah, you gotta keep holding down. You're trying to shrink it and create free space following.
You know, do I hold
And
some other key down?
Now, see, here's the thing. You're using probably G parted in
Yeah.
a live session. You
Right.
can't do that. You have to boot the computer with the G parted drive so that this is
Oh.
not mounted.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have to, I get out and I actually start up with G parted instead.
But anytime you see it grayed out like this for free space before, and that's
Yeah.
what your goal is, usually you have to shrink this by moving the right side of that bar so that it shrinks the size of the box representing that partition. It'll show you the space here and its size. And when you say, that's what I want, you hit the resize button, then resize the new partition by clicking here in the body of that partition
Yeah.
and slide it to the right.
You're right.
So that it is taking up the free space you just made after it. That makes the free space in between partition 1 and 2.
Right.
And then you just take partition 1
And
and
then
say resize it, taking up that free space.
And expand it over to take it up.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in some situations, it's a 3-step instead of a 2-step
Yeah.
process.
But I can't do it. I can't do it in this here. I have
And
to
that's,
actually,
that's because your drive is mounted. It
Yeah.
will not allow you to do
Right, okay.
any real change like
so
that.
what I've got to do is I got to boot up in G parted then.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Wayne, what it is just as in Windows, you cannot make changes to a running system.
Okay. Yeah.
It has to be a system that is
Okay.
either off or suspended in some way.
Okay. Well, that's what I was trying to get at. So
Yeah.
what I should really do is take my thumb drive that I had for G parted and boot up the laptop on that.
Yes.
That's the
correct.
best way. That's the best
Right.
way.
And it'll see those 3 partitions then.
Yes.
I can manipulate. Okay. That's what I was trying to get at.
In all likelihood, G parted will see it, and you want to make sure nothing is mounted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because
Then you will have very many fewer options grayed out and very many more possibilities, but you're going to go with mostly defaults. Only the size number needs to be something other than default.
Right. Right.
The defaults are really very good in G parted.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I can move that around, but I couldn't do it when it's live, when it's actually mounted.
Yeah,
That's the whole thing. Okay.
that's the most important take home.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Now, Dennis, what's it going to take besides an act of God to get you in motion? If nothing else, here's an idea. You can take if you got the Linux on a thumb drive, you can boot the computer right off of that. And you can play around with the Linux, get used to the Linux. But there are, you have to understand that it's going to put some limitations on what you can do, and it will usually not remember anything you set up to do, like internet access via Wi-Fi. As soon as you exit the Linux on the thumb drive, it forgets that. So the next time you boot it up again off the thumb drive, you got to set up the Wi-Fi again, first thing. Then you can do some other playing around with it, checking out the browsers and all kinds of good stuff. But that's a way of getting familiarized with it. And that's what you need right now is some familiarity. If Jim Freeberg was here, I would have said the same thing for him too. And same for Carl. So generally speaking, you got to dip your toes in the water at some point in time, Nat. And I don't know what your days are like. Mine, I either have to give up sleep or we got to change from 24-hour days to 36 or 48 hours for me to get most of my stuff done and have a little free time. Haha, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Well, of course, today was Windows Update Day.
Yeah, that's
And it put a cumulative update, but I have a Dell machine which wouldn't move off of 20H2, and all of a sudden it popped up that it's ready to update.
yeah. They do that in stages.
Well, but every other machine I have updated to 21H1. This one was held back from Dell. I don't know why.
No, it's not from Dell. That's coming from Microsoft, and they do everything in stages. They can't have everybody doing the same thing at the same time, so they spread it out. How they formulate what ones get the invitation to update and the ones that don't get it, I have no idea.
The sequence.
The others got it 6 months ago.
The sequence is usually Microsoft has a list of the ones they think are going to cause the fewest problems. They run those first.
Okay.
And then they go down the list until they get ones that they know are going to have some issues. Yours, Bert, may be on their list, their internal list of ones that they're not really all that sure it's going to go smoothly.
I'll look forward to that.
But I think you'll be all right.
That's why you're.
Well, it's updating now, so we'll see over
Well,
time.
see, that's a thing. Before
Yeah.
you ever do a major upgrade, have a full image backup that's verified. Then, if something goes wrong, you just reinstall that backup and you're back at least to an operational point instead of sitting there twiddling your thumbs with smoke coming out of your head.
And by the way, Linux does the same thing with any kind of an update, especially if the kernel changes.
Yes. I think I've only had one or two on kernel change that I ran into problems. That's when in the grub menu, it gives you advanced options and it gives you the ability to use an older kernel and see if you can get your system up and running. I have had one instance where none of it worked. And I had 4 or 5 different older kernels and tough luck. So I had to blow it away and reinstall it.
Well, this is why I keep a clone around from Clonezilla just in case. And I've had it happen a couple of times. It depends on which distro.
Well, yeah, but it also depends on how it's set up. If you have an all-in-one single partition, which I used to have, and I still have some that way that are strictly learning systems. I want to play with. I want to learn that particular Linux distribution. I don't mind having a single partition. Any that I'm kind of serious in, that's when I want to have the at least 3 separate partitions so that I can blow away the root, load it back up with the same OS or a different OS that's compatible, and it can then see the home directory and scratch pad area, and you're off and running with a revitalized system.
That'll work.
It's just a case where I think the one system that had multiple kernels and none of them would work, that was a singular one that was everything in one partition, like Windows does. And the only option I had to get things going was blow it away. There was nothing special in the damn thing. Very little added software. And so I just blew it away, reinstalled it, and life went on from there.
Yeah, if you choose your software just right, there are ways of saving the markings, and that also sometimes helps.
Yeah.
It depends on which distro you're using and what kind of software you need.
Yeah. It's just a case where if I am just, see, I got several systems with, I got a desktop. It's got 2 drives in it. It's got 2 different versions of Windows in it, and at least 8 versions of Linux. All the versions of Linux are single partition because they're there just to experiment, see what I can do with this, what I can do with that. If I have to blow it away, I blow it away and reload it. Or I load in a different one if I wasn't that satisfied with that distro. I have another system. It's a laptop. All I do there is I've got 8 to 10 drives. I just swap them in and out. One of them's got real Windows, and then it has Windows FX on the same, in a dual boot fashion. And all the others are standalone drives with one for Windows 11, one for Windows 8, one for 7, XP, and everything else is all Linux distributions. And those can be used as real production. All of them. So it's just a case where having the 3 partitions the way I originally showed people to set up works the best when you run into serious problems and you can't find your way out of the problem. You can blow away the root by reinstalling, and then say for the other 2 partitions, you click on them and say that I want to keep what's there. I don't want to format them. You do a keep. And whatever's in those partitions, it keeps. The swap file doesn't have that option. It's just a scratch pad, so it doesn't require that kind of stuff. If you had some other partitions broken out, those might be given the option of keep whatever they have also, and you just reinstall the Linux. It sees the home directory, it sees the swap file, you're back in business. That makes a life a lot easier. Depending on the system you have and the horsepower of the computer, whether it's laptop, desktop, even a tablet, if you have a system that is low power and slow with Windows, there's a good chance it's going to be also somewhat slow with a Linux distro. And they're not all created equal. Some are lightning fast, and other ones in the same general family are dog slow. And it all depends on the horsepower of your system. John Kennedy from APCUG says, as far as he goes, I'm pretty sure he has a Core i7 computer. What generation, I don't know, or speed. And I think, I'm not sure on his memory. But generally speaking, He thinks he can blow away the root and reinstall within about 15 minutes. Okay, take that with a grain of salt. If you don't have as high end a system, it's going to take you a little bit longer. To take a backup and restore the image might take just as long as just reinstalling the operating system. It's going to be trial and error. You have to figure this out on your own. Try both ways, and you'll find out, okay, in some systems, it's easier to just reinstall the OS without a backup. And in other situations, having that full backup and restoring it, that's pretty fast by comparison. If they're pretty much a tie, it doesn't matter which one you use then. Pardon me. My allergies are year round, and they've been bugging the heck out of me. So these are some of the things, but really, I don't mind canceling December. John Kennedy might not be thrilled about it, but and I don't know what Mike is thinking as far as that goes. But it's one of those things that you just have to. I got to get more feedback. If I find things as I'm doing the more FYs, I'll bring them up at the meeting. I haven't had time to do that kind of thing yet. And so right now, I'm relying upon each of you to be an individual, get the information, and look at it yourself. And maybe you can even enlighten the others in a future meeting about something you learned off one of the articles. Just keep track of what the article is, etc. But right now, for some of that, you would have to get more than a month's worth of postings that I have made since they haven't been going up on the website, and to have current stuff. But we've been playing with this since July. So between July and August, September, there's a lot of articles out there you can take advantage of that's on the website without getting the daily emails that I post. So you got lots of choices there. You're going to have to take the initiative. And like I said, if you do a search, you can find what you're looking for. Like if you're strictly looking for Linux, look for the Linux. Find the articles that seem interesting, bring them up. And if it turns out they're not interesting enough, close the tab. If they're interesting, read the thing in it and see what you can do with it. You got to think in terms, and part of the reason why I had you also set up not as a dual multi-boot, as a standalone system, it gives you the advantage of being able to do experimenting. And it's through the experimenting you learn. And when you're going to a new operating system like Linux, or let's say this was a Mac group, and you were going to Mac, you got to experiment. That's how you're going to learn it. You cannot be given a pill to know what one or more people happen to know about that OS. Bob knows a fair amount. I know a fair amount. When Mike's here, he knows a fair amount. When John Kennedy's here, he knows a pretty fair amount. That's fine. Those are the experienced people that help those who are newbies get acclimated to it. But we can't inject you with what we know. You have to take the initiative of using a resource like my More FYI postings, find the articles, start reading them and learning more, and then taking and applying it to the real world. In the case like Dennis, probably Jim Freeberg and Carl, it's a probability. What you need to do is start off by just running Linux off the thumb drive we created. Then you can experiment with the articles that you're reading. Not everyone's going to work, because some it's a case where it can only work on an installed system, not on a live distro. In some cases, you're going to go through the whole process. It's all set up and working, and you're learning from it. And as soon as you turn off the machine, it forgot everything you did. And you, the next time you get into the system, you want that program, you're going to have to set it up all over again. That reinforces what you learned the previous time. This is the learning process. It's called the rote methodology of education. It's been around for centuries. This is how we learn in school. All us were kids. This is what they do. They keep repeating the same stuff over and over again to get you to start remembering more and more and more and more, so that you can eventually pass the test better with better and better grades. You got to do the same thing in computers. If somebody knows of a magic pill or a vaccine that can be injected into a person that gives them all the knowledge they could ever want and need, I haven't heard about it. Did you have something, Bert? You're muted. Bert, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I take the FYIs, and for an article that I'm interested in, I copy it to OneNote. And I gather all kinds of history because those articles may not be there. I may not find them again if I want to look. But if I get facts from those articles and I store them off in OneNote in a folder by topic, and then I can go back and say, okay, I know I heard about this before, but I can look in OneNote and even search through it to find it. So that's my way of learning, of saving stuff. And the articles are important because later they probably aren't going to be there. That's the problem with the internet itself. Many times things are moved or changed or whatever. So when you get that nugget of information, save it. And then you can go back later and have a place to search for it. And remember what it is, the details were that you needed.
Yeah, I save notes. I save notes of what I do. I come from a kind of a scientific background, so I'm used to keeping logbooks of everything that I experiment with. And it's notes of what I intended, what I did, and what the outcome was, and what the sources of error were, and all that kind of stuff. And then go do it again until I get it right.
Not that detailed.
Well,
until I get it right.
Well, that's correct. Not only get it right, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes to do it in the future. At least for me, it very much is. And with organized notes, you can always go back and review what you did and how you did it. That's right. But I mean, the repetition process, most brains will pick up bits and pieces as you go along. And the more times you repeat it, the more you're going to remember. The more you remember, the easier it is to do the same thing over and over again until you're so bored, you don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. And then there are certain things that probably everybody ought to keep notes on, because these are the things that you're saying to yourself, this is what never to do again. Yeah, well.
Just so you know, I just got an email from Mick saying, how do I log on to the Linux SIG meeting? Because he attached the earlier message without the link.
Well, then somehow he didn't get the other messages because I don't know if Mick was on my Linux list. I sent everybody on my list a copy of the invite. Then I got with Beata, and she sent it out, and I see it, and other people have seen it also. So I don't know what Mick's problem is.
Well, does she send it out to everybody or just the people on the list?
Everybody. I
Okay.
sent it only to the list.
So I also found out that for Sanford's tips meeting, she only sends out to that Northwest group. She doesn't send to everybody. I don't know why.
Then how did I, as a West Sider, get on the list?
Yeah, and I've got it, and I'm technically
All
a
I know is what
Southsider.
now when I send them out to everybody. So just because you got it once from me doesn't mean she does the same thing.
I don't know. I just know that I haven't missed one that I know of, other than there was a little issue this time with Sanford's. But some of that is Beata doing what Beata wants to do. And she, Sunday's more FYI, I sent
But
it out.
maybe Sanford's, having her do that. So we just need to follow up.
Yeah, but I mean, I was doing that too, and I still am. What I'm getting at is yesterday between 4:30 and 5, I sent out Sunday's More FYI, and I sent out the original invite for the Linux SIG. Okay,
Which I got.
With those two, she didn't send out the Linux announcement at that time. She did send out the more FYI. She waited until this morning to try and send out the Linux SIG announcement. She found out the internet was down, but eventually a little before 10, she finally got it out, but not everybody got it. I didn't see it. And at the time, Bob sent me a message. And so I called Beata. She wasn't there right then, but she called back, and we did a little testing, and she finally got it sent out. What for her was the second time around, somewhere in the middle of the afternoon. And then by that time, pretty much everybody should have gotten the invite. What Mick's problem is, I have no idea.
Well, he hasn't requested to be part of the Linux SIG.
Well, that's probably true. This is the second time I'm aware of him bringing up the issue. Okay. So if he really wants to be on the list, I have to know about it, and I'll put it on my list so that if I don't see Beata sending out my invitation, I can send a copy to everybody on my list. And he's probably
Well,
not there.
apparently he got the first email, but not the last.
I do send out 2 announcements. They say announcement in the title, the subject line. And my actual one with the link says invite. So that's very distinctive.
Just more fun to work out.
Well,
Bert, is he trying to get into the meeting right now? This meeting?
Probably, but seems like inappropriate at this point.
yeah, I mean, right now it's 8:45. What's he gonna do? Say hi, goodbye? If he wanted he
Might make him feel welcome.
yeah, but I mean, he has a telephone. He could have called Beata and asked her about it long time ago. So I mean, there's other avenues. he could have tried calling me. Supposedly, he could have called me, and I could have directed him to it or sent him an extra message. But
If you get on it early enough, even email will work with Tim.
yeah,
I've had to do that twice.
well, see, I'm usually tied up in the mornings mostly, but
Yeah.
most of the afternoons I'm okay. But recently, I've had several afternoons where I'm having to do something outside the house, and I had some work getting some things ready for the winter, and so I haven't been on the machine except a bit of the afternoon. But I'm usually almost always on the computers in the evening, but I don't check my email that often in the evenings.
Well, so far it worked out for me.
Well, I mean, with me in the evening, that's the major time when I'm putting together a new more FYI and or farming new articles for the more FYIs. And you have to be real focused on that sucker and block out almost everything else going on. And that includes checking your email periodically.
Yeah.
And that's where actually the more FYIs, like I put on the actual emails, I do it on a Chromebook. And I have tools on the Chromebook that allow me to have, right now, I've got over 1,400 tabs scattered across 50 some odd windows.
You are worse than Bill Ziegler.
No, this is partly saved stuff that I am saving, and the majority of it is new articles I haven't put into a more FY publication yet. And about every 2 or 3 days, I have to do a save of all my content because any of the postings I already made are part of that save. I have to go into the current and delete those saved ones to make more space for new postings and new farmed articles. It's a real process. If anybody thinks you can do what I'm doing, say 5 minutes a day, I wish you a lot of luck. You'd be lucky to find one interesting article in the 5 minute period. Farming these articles, going through all my sources, and that some of them are fairly quick, but I've got a bunch of them. You have to go through a myriad of articles, find the ones that I think will be of interest, and forget about all the other garbage that's out there. And I don't like that fact, but they don't segregate their stuff to say, this is all computer or technical stuff. This is all the other stuff in other categories kind of deal. So you have to take what you can get. And I can spend hours on end just doing farming new material. And then I select from all my harvested articles, the articles I'm going to put into a daily post. And then I organize them. And then I have to transfer the title, the subtitle, and the URL, all three separate operations, into an email, and then go to the next tab for a new article and repeat the process again and again and again. And when you're talking around 90 articles in one day's post, that takes a couple hours at least. And
It takes even longer to read them.
yeah, I'm giving you a general idea of what it takes to put it together. And so bottom line is, it takes me longer to find all the stuff, put it together, and make the post than it takes peruse one day's posting, find what you're interested in the post, farm it out to a new tab, and then go back and start reading just the ones you're interested in. I segregate it that way because I know in my shotgun approach, if you're not into Macs, you're going to skip it. If you're not into iPhones or iPad OS, you're not going to look at those. You're not interested. For Windows and Linux, yeah, you might be interested. Raspberry Pis, maybe. Things like that. And sometimes some of the security articles that you might stumble across pique your curiosity. You make a separate tab of those, but I go through the entire list first. I'm done with the list because I went through the beginning to the end. And now I go to the tabs I opened up that I was interested in, and I start reading them. And like I say, 1-2 paragraphs, I know what the article is about, and it's nothing I'm really interested in, despite what the title was or subtitle. And I just close the tab, go on to the next tab, and I keep doing that and only really read completely the ones that I have. I have a lot of videos that go into the more FYIs too. So it's not, and a lot of them are off of YouTube.
I have a little trouble sometimes reading the Life Hacker articles. They're good articles, but you can't save them. For some reason, they won't save.
I haven't tried it, but that's interesting that you can't save them, but I don't understand why. Should
Neither
be
do
able
I,
to.
but I don't know what platform they're working from.
I don't offhand either, but see, what you see in Life Hacker, let's say that I farmed out 30 articles in all the time span that I went through. There's probably 5 times that number of articles I skipped over.
I understand. No, they're always interesting topics. Just more a matter of when I go to save some stuff, a couple types of pages don't copy well. That's one of them.
Bert, there's always snip and save.
It doesn't do it
There is a problem with Lifehacker, and there are certain other sites. The articles that you see are not text, they are images.
Yes.
And you can't copy paste images like that.
No, for that, you have to basically create the equivalent of a JPEG, MPEG, etc.
Windows snip and save does save it. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, you have to do a screen capture.
But you gotta, it takes a lot of copies.
No, you're wrong.
No.
There are snip, the original snipping tool in 10.
Yeah.
You don't see it in the list of programs under 10 anymore. You see the snip and sketch. Snip and sketch doesn't have a feature that the old snipping tool is. If your article goes 3 or 4 screens deep, as an example, the snipping tool, if you type it in on the search bar, it will bring that program up. And it has the ability to capture the whole web page in one picture.
I've never been able to get that to work. I have Snagit, which I also have difficulty getting to do.
Well, I've had good success with it, and I forgot about it, and I didn't realize when I went to Snip and Sketch that you couldn't do that feature. Now in 11, they took the 2 programs, married them together, and just call it snipping again. dropping snip and sketch, and it has that feature also. So there are some screen capture programs that allow you to basically say, I want to scroll through the screens for the article top to bottom, and it'll capture the entire thing.
Is it also possible to put those Lifehacker articles into a browser that has a reader mode? Because reader mode strips out everything and just gives you text, and it may give you images, but it makes it much more like a regular article.
Oh, that's interesting.
Also, MUO has great articles, but doesn't let you copy the images unless you go back one by one.
Correct.
If you
That
think that's-
is a problem with them.
if you think that's a problem, see, I do this on a Chromebook. I have security features in place. Most of the articles, I see almost none of the graphics. If I'm interested in the article, I have to make the posting first and then go to one of my other computers, usually a Windows computer, to bring up that article and see the real full content. That's not a joke.
I understand that, but I get their emails, so, you know, I don't have to search that way. But at the same time, it's disappointing that you want the pictures and you got to fight to get them.
Well, it depends on how they put the website together, I think, because they may have just a JavaScript link to a separate location for the image. It displays within the web page like you want it, but when you capture the site, you're only getting everything but the images.
How to Geek is great. All the pictures and everything comes across.
Yeah.
It depends on how they put it together.
Welcome to the world of copyrights and controlled access.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. And that, and you brought up Bert yourself in that. Today I've got the article. I published the article, and I have occasionally had a situation where before I could even get to the publishing point in a more FYI, the article is not there anymore. They moved it. So then I usually have to do a search. Clarence wants in. As we're going to probably be saying
I
goodbye.
sent him the link if he wanted it.
Yeah, well, he's going to come in. Anyway, with the, sometimes I have to search for it by the article title, get the article and its new URL, because what they're doing is they're archiving stuff. And the new URL is their archive of older articles. And I never got to the point of getting it published in a more FYI before they actually archived it. I've had maybe a dozen or so like that over the course of the years I've been doing more FYIs. So Clarence, how come you're in here? Hey, Mick.
Come again?
How come you're in this group?
Well, I just thought I'd see what was going on.
Well-
Finally, Bert sent me the correct link to the meeting that was incorrect in the email that was sent out
No,
to
no.
everybody.
Be careful. If I'm correct on my understanding from Bert, what you were looking at, the subject line says announcement. Announcement does not have the link. The one he sent you is an invite. The invite has the link. That's the way I do my announcements versus the actual invite that has the link. That's my technique, because you're not the first person to mess up seeing the announcement, not seeing a link, and not being able to get into a given meeting. So I distinguish them in the subject line between announcement and invite. Are you trying to get into Linux or what?
Well, I was into Unix for years. I had a group that we even consulted with Thompson and Ritchie on a few occasions and met with them, which was quite a interesting group.
Well, what we're doing here is we got a lot of newbies in the group. We got several fairly experienced people. It's just a case where we recommended using Linux Mint. It's now on 2104, I think it is, and or 21.2, excuse me. And also, I recommend it being put on a separate machine from whatever you're using now, so that they are separate and distinctive. And I had a session in July on how to set it up with 3 partitions and why it should be set up that way. And I have still a few people that haven't set up yet, but they seem to claim they're a little too busy to get around to it. They'll get around to it as soon as Santa Claus shows up and shows them how to do it. So if you want to get into it, then you have to let me know. I can put you on my list so that Comcast was out this morning. And even though I sent out the invitation yesterday, Beata didn't send it out last night. And she tried to send it out this morning, found out she's got no internet. And when she did have it, she sent it out and not everybody got it. So that's got to be a problem with Xfinity. And so this afternoon I got with her, and I before I did, I sent out a direct link to everybody on my Linux list. And then I got a hold of her. And after some experimenting on her end, my guidance, we finally got her to send it out again, and most people got it. So you should have gotten it by at least this afternoon.
No, I didn't receive anything.
Well, it may be to do with Xfinity to your area. I don't know.
Well, I had access. And besides, I've got AT&T, so that shouldn't have entered into it, I don't believe.
Well, remember, she's in Xfinity.
I know.
And it has to go out from Xfinity.
But even
everywhere
though
else
she sent
in
it
the
out
world.
in the afternoon, I should have received it immediately.
I agree. But why you didn't, I can't answer the question. I know she sent it out because I hadn't gotten her one from this morning. But when she sent it out again in the afternoon, I got the copy. I think a lot of other people did too. But they also got my copy if they were on my Linux list.
Well, that's the way things are, it looks like.
Yeah, it's Beata had both my Sunday More FY post and the invitation between 4:30 and 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. She sent out the More FY post somewhere around between 8 and 9 o'clock at night. because she was not at home. And but why she didn't send out the invitation then, I don't know. But normally when she sends it out, everybody gets it.
Mick, are you on the list for the FYIs?
No.
Well, just to clarify, I'm trying to understand. So Beata would send to everybody in CCS the Linux the fact that there's a Linux meeting, but she doesn't do that for the tips and tricks. Is that the only thing that's different?
No. When Beata sends it out, it goes to everybody, or it's supposed to anyway. And if I do it myself for the Linux group, I send it to the people I have on my list. Sanford has the same capability. He has a list of the people in his tips and tricks. It may not be totally up to date. And he sends it out to those people to, when he doesn't see the message from Beata of his meeting announcement.
So she
Or he
doesn't
sends it
send
to
out
me and
those.
I forward it.
Whoa. One at a time.
So Beata doesn't send out the tips and tricks.
If she sees it, yes. If she's in the house at the time, she's got a life of her own, the same as you do and everybody else here.
So if I know that Beata's not sending out, because it's over the weekend, and I don't see it go out, then I send it out. Sanford forwards it to me in advance.
Yeah.
And as far as the FYI, those are only going to the 21 people who asked for it.
Yeah.
So you have to ask for that. That's a different list.
That's an opt-in list. You have to say, I want the more FYIs. Please send it to me. She puts you on a special list. Anybody who's on that list gets my more FY postings until we can get the website back up to date.
When will that be?